didn't just leave you high and dry.
Right, yeah. I actually just maybe didn't cast him in a great light in my last sentence. It also was fine. There was no.
It's just
hard
unfortunate
feelings.
all around. But
yeah, so it was a bit of a bummer. So that was in October, and then I just had to fucking. Yeah, and then I was like, you know what? Fuck life, 666. I don't give a shit about having a studio. I don't know, because that's something. It's like because it's something we talked about a bunch of times, which is hard to say, because like when we talk about this stuff, we don't want to talk shit about the distillery, or the distillery fucking gallery, which is run by people I've never even met and have no idea who they are. We
it also seemed really cool.
Yeah, it seemed great. We don't want to talk shit about Dorchester Art Project either. Everyone's dope, but I personally think that there is a huge problem with the way we as artists think about studio spaces, and the way a lot of these fucking art spaces that are rented, not just Dorchester Art Project, but like a lot of the way these fucking places are marketed and rented towards artists is just fucking real estate people.
Yes.
And essentially real estate entrepreneurs and property owners that have discovered that it's really fucking lucrative to sell horrible shit, broken ass raw spaces to artists in the city for way too much money. And
not just in the city, on the South Shore too.
And like, I'm no expert on zoning and shit, but it's also when you own a building and you own a property and you zone it as an artist community space, you have to do a lot less maintenance. You have to meet a lot less standards for safety and quality of the building and the space.
That's so funny.
Right, that's fucked.
Yeah.
It's fucked. And like, because like,
which just to say, I feel like I keep jumping in to defend that, but I just want to also say that their business model and the way that they provide studio space is directly in response to this issue.
And DAP is Dorchester Art Project.
Yes.
Just for people who don't know.
Yeah, Dorchester Art Project is amazing, and the way that they do studio space is an artist-centered... It's a way of doing it with a heart, and all of the income and rent immediately goes right back into the nonprofit and benefits the artists that are there. So they're not included in this. But the majority... Like, they're the only place that I've seen... that I know of personally that has studio space that is affordable and ethical like that. Like, there might be other spaces that are considered affordable, but when I'm talking about affordable, I mean, I live month to month. I rent an apartment in Somerville, which I'm very lucky to live in Somerville because it's a nice area.
It's a nice
and honestly, I would think that it would be out of my price range. I got lucky in the apartment that I'm in. I share it with my brother and their partner and another roommate who are all amazing. But I do have other obligations financially. I college dropout, student loans, broke all the time, probably will die that way. And it's fine.
Sick.
But getting a studio, like, even the difference between what my rent is at DAP and what you're doing at the distillery, even as a sublet, is not affordable to me. So maybe I just don't know of other spaces, and maybe somebody with a little more income would consider other places in Boston affordable, but as far as I know, DAP is the only place that would be good for an artist like me.
Yeah, I think I think the prices of studios are definitely dependent. It's literally just all about where you are. Because obviously, I mean, a fucking random warehouse room in fucking, I don't know, Lowell, Indiana, or something, or like some random town in Missouri or something, like, I don't know why I said Lowell, Indiana.
I was like, is that a place?
But actually, I literally have been to a place called Lowell, Indiana. Never mind. But
I was gonna say, you could probably get a studio in Lowell.
Dude, you could probably get a fucking warehouse studio in the middle of some rural ass farm fucking place for $20 a month, right? Like, but that doesn't mean there's gonna be a community around you. That doesn't mean there's gonna be other artists. That doesn't mean you're going to be among a fucking creative, flourishing environment, because you're fucking not going to be. So but here's the treacherous part. So what do you do if, like, say you're in your fucking hometown and it fucking sucks and there's just a bunch of Trump supporters and fucking old people and you want to go make art in a cool studio? What do? You go to your nearest city. You go to the capital of your fucking state.
Yeah.
Like for us, Boston. But what do you do when you get there? Oh no, there's a bunch of fucking real estate people and fucking building owners that know you're coming.
Or
they know you're on the way.
art school.
Yeah, or you accidentally apply to art school.
Yeah, accidentally.
I'm just kidding.
Whoops.
But like, I'm just talking shit. But like,
it's true, though.
Then you end up in the city and there's these fucking people that want to fucking sell you a fucking shithole room with fucking no windows because you want to feel like a fucking bohemian fucking artist on the 5th floor of like a building that used to manufacture fucking toilet seats or like fucking radium watches.
Yeah.
Or something. and like now you're shelling out like anywhere from like $300 to fucking $1,000 a month.
That could be going towards your quality of life and your supplies.
Yeah, and $300 a month. If you found something for $300 a month in a capital city in any fucking state, it's either a fucking sublet, it's filled with fucking roaches and you're gonna fall through the floor,
or you're very lucky.
Or you're lucky because they're just fucking not there.
Yeah.
So, oh my God, I'm getting all like fired up. I'm like,
you're right though. You're totally right.
But like, and that's the thing though, is like I've been a part of artist communities. I've rented a space with a group of people, ragtag people, getting all our money together, and we're gonna make a community and have shows and have all of our friends come through. And while it lasted, it was awesome. Mm. But here, I've done it twice. One of them was a place called the Puzzle Factory, and it was dope. It was fucking a crazy amount of fun. Nobody gave a shit. It was pure fucking just chaos and fun and crazy times. But the only reason it worked is because it was in the suburbs, in a place that nobody wanted to be and nobody wanted to live. It was a collection of like 5 rooms. One of them was $40 a month.
That's insane.
It was a studio bigger than this room that we're in for $40 a month. It was like, for a reference, it was like the size of a 7-Eleven or something. Like, and it was just a couple rooms. But the only reason it worked is because nobody cared about the quality of the space, and it cost almost basically nothing.
Yeah.
So that was great. It got shut down, obviously. The second space was a place called the Chess Company. And for a million different reasons, it didn't work. But the main reason it didn't work is because it was a super small space. It was $1,250 a month, which is fucking insane. Mm. Rented between 8 people that all wanted... This is also a 1,000 square foot room with 8 people in it, trying to all use it for different reasons. Mm. A bathroom that didn't fucking work. Food trash everywhere. Chipmunks. This is the Chipmunk studio. And also, like, just to be completely frank, like, not to talk shit, but it was a super toxic environment. And I think that was born out of the fact that it was insanely expensive.
Yeah.
And underutilized and chaos. And, like, the only reason the chaos, bohemian, crazy, wacky, glow stick fucking showroom worked is when it cost nothing.
Yeah.
Because nobody cares if a hole gets put in the wall or if the security deposit goes out the window.
Yeah.
Like, nobody fucking cares. But
if it's expensive, your livelihood is being compromised in order to make this work. Which means everybody has to be all in, and it's never like that.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's so hard. It's so hard to make a good artist community.
And one thing I will say, like, word to the wise for young people, please don't try to do that.
Oh my God.
If you can do it, that'll be dope, but don't be the one with your name on the lease.
Yeah,
don't risk your credit when you're 18 to try and make an arts community with your best friends. Not because you can't, because you probably could, but just remember that art, and the reason why people like to make art most of the time, is expression, to have fun, to get to the bottom of your emotions, all this cool stuff. And business is cutthroat, it is cold, and you could lose the money that you need for college or for rent or to pay your bills or to buy groceries at the end of the day. And it is, being 18, 19, like 17, that age group is when art school are looking at you, when you're trying to make decisions that you think are going to affect the rest of your life and probably will only affect the next 3 years.
Yeah.
You're at a perfect place to be taken advantage of, and for your credit to get fucked, and for you to be taking out loans, regardless if you go to school or if you're trying to do it on your own.
Yep.
Just make sure you're looking out for yourself, because you are starting a business and you are an entrepreneur if you're trying to do it that way. Yeah. And just remember that, because as much as you love somebody, you don't want to have your ability to succeed in life tied up with their financial responsibility, especially if they're in the arts. Especially if they're in the arts.
And, like, that doesn't even mean don't accidentally fuck around with somebody who's going to fuck around on you and not fucking pay. That happens, but also life happens. Yeah. And, like, maybe I don't know, whatever. Anyway.
Maybe you don't want to lose a friendship over a lease.
Yo, do you want to monologue for, like, 2 minutes? I have to pee so fucking
Oh my gosh,
bad.
all right, what should I say?
Just say anything you want.
Okay, bye. Oh my gosh. Okay, so, I'm on the spot now. Related to that, I guess, to go back a little bit, something else that I would say to somebody who might be younger and considering looking at art schools, or if you're, I mean, I guess we've said a lot of things that are things that went wrong for us, and I don't want to come off like we know, or that I know personally, the right way to be an artist in Boston, because full transparency, I am currently unemployed, for the first time in a long time, to be fair, but because of the pandemic. My most recent application that I'm most excited about is to be a crew member at Trader Joe's. I've been selling commissions since I was about 12 or 13 years old, but it hasn't really done a lot as far as that goes. And what I really decided, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, welcome back, is that separating my financial situation from my artistic development and growth, although much easier said than done, is my goal personally. I'm living, obviously, in a capitalist society. I cannot be an entrepreneur and an anti-capitalist at the same time. That's just true. You have to at least work within that parameter because you exist within it. You have to pay your rent. You have to buy groceries. I have to take care of my cat. Like, there are things that are non-negotiable just to be able to live, and those things have to be handled before I can make my art, which in the past, I've gone radically in one direction and said that means that art is a luxury. I no longer believe that at all. For some people that might be true, and that's okay, but for me it's not. But at the same time, I do have to have a certain amount of freedom in order to work on my art, which means that for me, I'm not trying to make my living off of commissions. That might not be the answer for everybody, but I've found that if I'm putting money into my artwork, it has to be with people involved that I really trust, and I have to try and figure out a way to work through the things that I want to work through with my art and bring it in the direction that I want to bring it in and work on the projects that I want to work on without compromising my livelihood and my safety, which for me means I have to pay my rent before I can get a studio, or I have to buy groceries before I can buy Nora paints. I don't really know. I don't have an overall point with this.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. Like, so I think that ties into the studio conversation. It ties into a lot of things, but
college too.
College also, because that's a huge financial decision. Even though it doesn't feel like it, it absolutely is. But like I think too, like for me, I am a person that's struggled with mental health shit and trauma and all kinds of stuff my whole life. So I am very aware that, like, so, or, well, for me specifically, my mental health being right and being good is a prerequisite to making anything.
Yes.
To making art, to making money, to having meaningful relationships. If my mental health is fucked up or I'm in a fucked up place, I can't do that shit.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck about how many fucking crazy starving artists have made like masterpieces and fucking Saturn eating his son and fucking
God.
Fuck that shit, dude. Fuck that shit. Like, I don't know, man. Like,
also unpacking that a little bit to expand on what you're saying.
Yeah.
Most of the artists that you hear about, they're like, this artist was mentally ill and they succeeded anyway and their pain brought about beauty. Most of that is bullshit. Most of that is
museum marketing.
Yes, museum marketing. A beautiful narrative that was written to make you want to look at the work, to buy tickets to the museum, to buy
Written
prints
by a
of the art.
curator.
Yes.
To sell fucking shit in the fucking gift shop.
Yep, and let's take that apart really quickly. Let's talk about Frida Kahlo. Frida Kahlo was a mentally ill, chronically ill artist who was non-binary and queer. She was a phenomenal painter. Really interesting writer as well. Her journals are really interesting if you want to look into them. I'm sure you fucking know who Frida Kahlo is. But the way she found success was not by being in bed all the time. It was not by being mentally ill. It was not by having episodes. It was because she, first of all, had connections with her husband and then boyfriend, Diego Rivera, who was a pretty established painter. Yeah, partner. Yeah. A pretty established muralist and painter. And she had a lot of friends through him and eventually made a lot of friends on her own that were connected in the art world. And she got a platform based on her political activism and her artistic involvement. She had a lot of powerful connections. Those connections are what made her famous, not her mental illness. Vincent van Gogh was another one that people mention all the time, and I personally was a total slut for in high school and thought he was so great and so cool. Yeah. His brother was wealthy. His name was actually Theo.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, Van Gogh's brother is the one who marketed all of his work. He died at a young age, presumably by suicide, potentially to cover up an accidental gunshot that was caused by young boys. That's an interesting story you should look into.